What's the most spiteful thing an ex has done to you? My ex is a physician and an addict, so she can manipulate with the best of them. When we decided to split, it was quite clear who was in the wrong, and we agreed that the debt she had accumulated through her multiple tours in rehab, well north of $100K, would stay with her. We didn't have any children or any joint property to cause any fits over, so the divorce seemed pretty straightforward. She got a lawyer to help push it through, and I was going to try to not get one of my own to save costs. Obvious mistake. I was supposed to go to her attorney's office to sign some paperwork, but was having trouble reaching someone at the office to make time to stop by. Her lawyer emailed her that day saying that he hadn't heard from me yet, and she forwarded this email to me without realizing that she was forwarding me the entire email chain that she had with her counsel loops. In the email, she very clearly stated that she wanted to slap me with the rehab debt, stating that I was complicit in her drug use total ethals. Needless to say, I went pretty crazy and immediately hired the most cutthroat lawyer I could find in the area. My lawyer was awesome and cheap, and he routinely put her in her proper place. My lawyer was awesome and cheap. Man, I really need to get in contact with this old guy. My first serious living girlfriend cheated on me with several of her past partners. I could never catch her doing it, but for a variety of reasons, I knew I was nuts about her, though, and she lied like a politician. Finally, my best friend's older brother ailed her on purpose to prove it up. Fair thank for that, I guess. I packed up my shit and left peacefully, but I had forgotten to grab my out portfolio from behind the couch. I called her that afternoon and said I would be right down to get it. As I pulled into the driveway, she dropped the lit match onto the gasoline-soaked pile of my entire life's collection of artwork. Never did another piece of artwork again. My ex broke up with me, telling me she didn't want to be in a relationship right now. 2 weeks later, she started dating my roommate. Yeah, had the same thing happened, except instead of roommate, it was my best friend. My ex wrote a poem about my donk being small. It was like 10 verses long, and it was actually very good. She sent it to all my friends, but not me. I found out 5 years later she did this. My friend showed me it. She had sent it via MS and email to everyone, and I was like down. She owned me. Luckily, though, I had ex with her sister a year prior to discovering this poem. Not to spite her or anything. Her sister just really likes me, so I guess we were even. I don't know. And anyway, it's not that small, it's okay. I had an ex spread the rumor around my small hometown that I had physically abused her through our relationship. I couldn't figure out at first, but all of my platonic girlfriend suddenly started hating and avoiding me when I would visit. When I called her out on it at a party, she just started laughing and said, "Oh, yap. I was just mad at you," and told people that isn't that funny. All I could do was shake my head and say, "No, bitch, that's not funny at all." I still have to correct people to this day, 2.5 years later. This wasn't spite directed at me, but it was pretty narcissistic and ridiculous. My ex broke up with me and took our jointly owned car to another state, proceeded to lose a series of jobs, and failed to help pay any of our joint debt. The agreement had been that he would pay it all, as I was a poor grad student and he was supposedly walking into a 6-figure salary. I had to track down his mom to get mine off of his car loan. As he wouldn't answer my emails about it, I had to pay the remaining joint debt off myself slowly to preserve my credit $16K. Then he had the goal to come to read it and post an AMA about how he purposefully left his high-paying job to follow his dream and become a penniless writer, despite Reddit pretty much immediately calling him out for receiving unemployment benefits, which you don't get if you leave your job. He brought up our relationship in the AMA and mentioned how he had paid all of our joint debt himself when he left, since he could have afford and I was just a student. After all the time and saving, it took me to get rid of that debt myself. That was pretty shitty to read. Pretty much the whole AMA was very self-congratulatory like that. A lot of people brought into it and stroked his ego, and it made me realize just how fraught with single-sided BS that subreddit might be. Stalked me for 1 year after breakup, made for email addresses similar to my name, and emailed everyone I know telling them I was a bad person or swearing at professors, etc. Called me 10+ times a day for a year. Same treatment for any girl I had any interest in. Showed up everywhere I went, killed herself in front of me where she was spiteful. My ex filed a bogus restraining order not allowing me to see my son, who I was taking care of while she was at work. She filed that I was going to kill him and her and then take him overseas. The court accepted the order. 6 months later, she calls saying you need to start watching the baby again. I start watching my son again, and then I asked her if my son could spend at least one night a week with me. I was retired from the police, forced U-turn on the job injury, and so I had a benefit of spending time with my son. She flat out refused. Long story short, after all the false allegations she stated about me, false kidnapping reports, having the police knock down my door, and my son and I in shark years of court proceedings. And even though the courts and state social worker found her a scorned woman and a rampant liar, they awarded her full custody. It's been 5 years, 6 months, 7 days, 16 hours. For minutes and counting since I last saw or spoke with him. I cannot see my son, which I still pay $400 a month in child support, and he only lives 10 minutes away from me. We broke up, and I thought we were on solid terms. I was selling weed at the time and saw her and her friend in a store maybe a year after we'd broken up. Small talk. Things were fine. Then later on, her friend, female, texted me asking for a half ounce. I hadn't seen this girl since 7th grade, but we were friends then, so I thought it was fine. Long story short, why want to meet them? They were with 2 white gangsters who considered themselves Bloods, clearly just pun castra, who were planning on robbing me and beating me. Unclear how much damage they wanted to do, but they both brought knives and ducking up my car. Thankfully, I've always been very observant and quick to judge, notice some sketchiness. And as I saw them getting ready to make a move, peeled out and screamed "die ducker" in the ass, as I drove by them secrets out or edit. I talked to her about it a couple years later, and she told me they drove around all night trying to find my car to slash for tires. But thankfully, I'd lived in an apartment with my mom when I dated the crazy bitch, so they couldn't find the house I'd moved into. I'm late to the party, so this will get buried, but here is the worst one I have witnessed. I started dating a girl just out of high school. Her ex-boyfriend was abusive. When he found out that we were waiting, he tried to befriend me. I was unaware of his abusive habits until he tried to beat my ass one day. That didn't work out too well on his end, so the next attack was to call the cops and my parents and report that I was selling weed. That didn't work out either, and no drugs were found. He found out I smoked pot in the week we were friends. His final duck, he was putting her little brother in the car with him and driving off a bridge. He killed both himself and her little brother. We find out later that he had been befriending her brother too, so there was no real suspicion when they got into the car together. My ex-wife started ducking my best friend of 14 years as soon as we separated, but I allow the possibility that it happened before that. Not only did she crush my soul, but took my best friend who I looked up to. He was also married. I hear they had a baby now, and he is still married. Whatever. I hope they both die of shark AIDS. Shark AIDS, the worst kind of AIDS, because shark weakens your immune system. Me and the lady split a few 2 months ago out of nowhere. I get a random text from her, which happens to be a picture of her hand grasping a penis of impressive stature. She began to explain how thankful she was I broke up with her so she could find such a penis. I wanted to be mad, but couldn't. Just kind of stared at the picture for a while, thinking good for her. Forward the text to her dad. Well, my ex and I were going through a divorce. He decided to share with me that a year and a half prior, he had, in fact, up my dog. She was 14, had her since she was 6 weeks old with him to work, dropping her off in the middle of nowhere on the way. She was afraid of him, but he lured her into his truck with the words that every dog loves bye-bye. He even left the gate open to make it look like she got out on her own. I searched for that damn dog for months. He sat back and watched me cry. Put up posters go to every animal shelter around us. I hate that ducker not only for that reason. He also is a religious weirdo. Attempted suicide, or at least claimed to attempt suicide multiple times purely to get my attention. The first time it happened, I called an ambulance, only to have the police call me back 20 minutes later, saying she was clearly making the whole thing up. Also regularly threatened to crash her car with both of us in it, and to kill my family, and once tried to stab me with a kitchen knife. Once we broke up, she told all of our mutual friends that I was an abusive, cheating bastard, neither of which is even remotely true. By the time I realized what she was doing, most of them were already refusing to talk to me. Of that entire group, she manipulated all but 2 or 3 into hating my guts. I dated this guy for about 3 months, December 2008 to February 2009. And then I broke it off because he was trying to control me and I wasn't going to go through that again. Before we broke up, he was living with me and subletting his apartment. Well, once we broke up, I wanted him gone. Unbeknownst to me, he had gotten himself a residency permit, which meant I could not legally kick him out. I spent 9 months fighting this. In the meantime, he would slap himself in the face until it was bright red, and then call the cops and say I was beating him. I would get arrested and then let out the next day when he decided not to press charges. Oh, and he did that about once a month. The apartment was in my name, so I couldn't just leave it without penalty, so I was essentially stuck. He had manipulated the police department into believing him, so nothing I tried to get him to leave worked. Finally, in December 2009, I had met a new guy. Well, the ex decided that if he couldn't have me, no one could. He bolted my bedroom while I was sleeping, so I couldn't get out. And he told everyone I know that I had herpes and had a history of getting knocked up and getting abortions, which has sinewy ended my new relationship. I couldn't take it anymore. I called my dad, had him come pick me up. I lived 1,300 miles from home, broke my lease, and got the duck out of there. TLDR, ex manipulated cops into thinking I beat him. Had me arrested a few times, locked me in my room, and ruined my new relationship. I'll post mine as well. I dated a hot, crazy girl in high school. I thought that I would be super cool and take her out to my parents' lake house after we'd broken up. A couple of weeks later, she and boyfriend whom she dated before, during and after we were waiting, rented a U-Haul van and cleaned out the house of all of the furniture. She even stole my 8-year-old little sister's bunk bed. The only thing left was Frigg because they couldn't get it through the door. Dad found the house trashed and was pissed. We didn't find this out until a couple of years later, when her boyfriend ducked up and got caught. He admitted to stealing our stuff since the cops were able to match the serial numbers on the washer and dryer. I knew something was up when she called me up around Thanksgiving before we got the news about her boyfriend, that she really loved me and really missed me. Stupid myth thought this girl was coming around, and we would get back and life would be great. 2 weeks later, I was giving my report to a detective, and she is now currently in jail. In hindsight, insurance paid us for all of the stuff stolen, which was worth more than the current condition the stuff was in. The cops said all of our stuff was ducked up beyond repair. For your information, she's currently in jail, and I am now married to the most beautiful woman in the world, and she is my best friend with a baby on the way. Nothing out of the ordinary. I came home one evening and found a note that she didn't love me anymore, had moved in with her parents, and would appreciate it if I could be gone during the upcoming weekend so she could collect her stuff. Stunned and stupid as I was, I complied. Came back home Sunday evening to find the place completely empty. She took everything except one thing, a 22-volume Britannica she bought the month before, despite my protests, and had only paid the first installment for. When I asked for explanation, she told me that since I had a job in Solarian, she was a student, I would be simply able to replace all the furniture and pay off the encyclopedia. The first thing I did, the books brought in her name, I sold, and I spent the money on a trip to Paris. Which isn't this called theft? What she did or what I did? Right after high school, there was a girl who liked me, but the feeling was not mutual. She decided to cope with her rejection using the means at her disposal. She was an assistant manager at a video rental chain. I had stopped de-renting there, but my rental account was still open. She started checking out movies under my name that I never actually borrowed. They would never get returned, so massive late fees plus replacement fees showed up on my account. She also changed my mailing address in their systems so that I would never receive the notices in the mail. It wasn't until close to the year later that I started getting the phone calls from debt collection agencies. It took years to get them to stop, and it negatively impacted my credit because I had no proof that the debts weren't valid, whereas the video chain had computed her records of the rentals. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.